I published a piece, in fact, I think it was the Friday before last week. I published a piece about, and a long thread on Twitter that went nuts. You know, they got broadly, widely retweeted and whatnot, about this case that is coming before the U.S. Supreme Court this fall. The court just, Moore v. Harper, and the court just picked this up. And at the time, you know, when I first started speaking out about this, I think I was the only person with any kind of noticeable profile in America. Maybe I'm patting myself on the back too much here, or I don't mean to be patting myself on the back. Actually, at the time, when I wrote the piece and put this out, I was thinking, am I wrong? Why isn't everybody else saying what I'm saying? Because what I was saying was, it looks to me like the Supreme Court is getting ready to say, okay, Georgia, if you didn't like the way your people voted, you know, for Joe Biden in the election, your legislature has the power to overturn the will of the voters and simply give your electoral college votes to Donald Trump. And, you know, I laid that out, and I laid out this scenario where I said that you know, just imagine, right, in 2024, it's I was just using Joe Biden. Frankly, I doubt that he's going to run for re-election, but who knows? I mean, he's not going to admit that he's not going to run for re-election. That would kill his presidency right now. But, you know, I think Gavin Newsom releasing that video down in Florida was an opening shot in the 2024 primary. I think Kamala Harris has been doing some great stuff. I think those are opening shots in the 2024 primary. But in any case, I used Joe Biden just, you know, because it was easy and convenient, and said, you know, Joe Biden is running against Ron DeSantis, and Biden wins just like he won in 2020. And then Georgia comes in and says, no, we've decided to give our electoral college votes, even though they went to Joe Biden, we're going to give them to Ron DeSantis anyway. And then Arizona says the same thing, and then Michigan says the same thing, and then, you know, Wisconsin, et cetera. And like I said, I was expecting, or half expecting, a number of people, particularly some of your high-profile lawyers out there, to say, Hartmann, you're nuts. And instead, Lawrence Tribe retweeted my article, as did Heather Cox Richardson and you know, a few other high-profile people. Heather Cox Richardson, by the way, mentioned another tweet of mine in her newsletter last night. If you don't subscribe to her Substack newsletter, you're missing something really good. She is chronicling history on a day-by-day basis as it happens. And it's such a brilliant read. But in any case, now the folks are starting to come out. This was in The Atlantic. Thomas Wolfe and Ethan Herenstein wrote a piece called How the Supreme Court Could Upend the Integrity of Our Elections. It has moved from, you know, fringe left-wing talk radio hosts' Twitter feed into the mainstream of public opinion, which is a good thing. And they are writing how this little noticed but extremely dangerous project, Moore v. Harper, it started out, and really what the case is at its core is this gerrymander in North Carolina. The North Carolina Republicans gerrymandered their state to give massively more seats in the House of Representatives and in their own state House and Senate to Republicans than to Democrats. So that even though the majority of voters in the state of North Carolina are now voting Democratic, which is why the state has a Democratic governor, the Republicans still control the state. And the Republicans still control the state delegation in the House of Representatives. Well, the state Supreme Court pointed out that the Constitution of North Carolina says that essentially it speaks of a Republican form of government. And a Republican form of government has been understood from the founding of the Republic. It's also in the Constitution that people are guaranteed a Republican form of government. And what that means is that the will of the majority of the voters is what becomes law. It's what goes. And so the Supreme Court in North Carolina said, no, you can't do that gerrymander because you would have, you know, 55, I'm making these numbers up, but, you know, you would have 55% of the people in the state voting for Democrats, and you would have Republicans controlling 70% of your state offices and your congressional delegation. And the numbers are probably in that neighborhood. Might be closer to 51 or 52%, but they're in that neighborhood. And so this got appealed to the Supreme Court. The Republicans in North Carolina, they want to keep their gerrymander, which was ruled unconstitutional by the North Carolina Supreme Court. And this got appealed to the Supreme Court. And 4 members of the U.S. Supreme Court, in several different decisions and opinions, have basically taken the position that under the Constitution, the legislature of North Carolina, without any say from the Democratic governor, by the way, he can't veto this, the legislature of North Carolina can decide how elections are run and who gets what seats and all that kind of stuff. They're going to uphold extreme gerrymanders. But that's just the first step. They're also, in my opinion, and growing, increasingly, we're hearing this from respected mainstream legal commentators, lawyers, the lawyers like Lawrence Tribe, who wrote a piece about this in last Monday's Los Angeles Times, by the way. It's worth checking out. We're hearing from them that, they also want to be able to say, the majority of people in North Carolina voted for Joe Biden. We're going to give the electoral college votes to Donald Trump anyway, or Ron DeSantis or whoever. And this is dangerous stuff. Back in 2020, Sam Alito was joined by Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch in writing a statement, not an opinion, a statement, validating this so-called independent state legislature theory. This was the theory, by the way, that John Eastman was using to argue to the states, the swing states that voted for Biden, that they should throw their elections for Trump. In other words, the court is going to legalize the John Eastman-Donald Trump conspiracy. Back in March, these authors point out in theatlantic.com, back in March, Alito, again joined by Thomas and Gorsuch, issued yet another dissent that all but asked the Republican legislators to file an appeal, which they did, and we got here. So here's where, and Brett Kavanaugh, in one of these, Brett Kavanaugh concurrence from Justice Brett Kavanaugh suggested much the same. So now we've got Alito, Kavanaugh, Thomas, and Gorsuch on record as saying, no, the independent state legislature theory holds. And Republican legislatures in states should be able to decide where the Electoral College votes go and how badly they're going to gerrymander the state. Now, that's 4 out of 9. They need one more vote. And we don't know what the position is of Amy Coney Barrett or John Roberts. But if either one of them, and it only takes 4 votes to grant what's called grant cert, for the Supreme Court to say, yes, we will hear this case. And so presumably those were the 4 votes to grant cert for this case. And the question is, will they pick up Barrett and Roberts? And I have a feeling we will know, or we will have a good sense of this by the end of October, this fall, a month before the election in November. And in my opinion, the only thing that can stop this is just a massive Democratic blowout in this November's elections. And frankly, I'm thinking that the sleeping giant has been awakened with this Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. That women across America are pissed off like never before, and they are mobilizing and organizing along with their allies, their male allies,